Nobody likes a cheater, whether it's taking a sneak peek at an opponent's poker hand, deflating footballs to gain an unfair advantage, or hiring someone to break a competitor's legs to effectively end their career. Sorry, Jules. It's a practice rightly frowned upon. Video games, however, are a different story. For a player to cheat, the ability to do so must first be programmed into the game's code by the developers themselves. But punishing players for utilising a feature that was specifically implemented seems ever so slightly unfair, to say the least. Of course, there are other ways to cheat, exploiting flaws in the game's mechanics, repeatedly saving and loading, or simply looking up puzzle solutions on the internet are all opportunities that are ripe for the taking. But what happens when the devs wise up to your schemes? Whether it's through patching in a response to well-known exploits or simply preempting player misdeeds, some attempts at cheating are met with pretty entertaining responses. And after compiling a list of these vengeful developers, we received an absolute torrent of other suggestions that were just too good to not discuss further. So here are some of the best taken from your own comments, which is kind of like we have cheated on our research, but hey, what are you gonna do? I am the prosperous cheater, Ash from WhatCulture Gaming, and these are 10 video games that knew you'd try to cheat. Commenters edition. Ooh. 10. BATTLETOADS / Double Dragon. The Dark Queen doesn't cheat. A beat-em-up developed by Rare and Trade West in 1993, BATTLETOADS / Double Dragon was a crossover between two notoriously difficult franchises of the era. The existence of a scant few cheats in the original Battletoads was, for some, the only way to make it to the end. Attempting to use cheats in this similarly challenging title, however, was a surefire route to humiliation. When selecting their characters, players could enter a code which would then reward them with 10 lives and also the ability to select a level, taking them straight to the Dark Queen's headquarters if they so desired. However, after the grueling punch-up with the intergalactic dominatrix herself, the game's actual ending is replaced with a chastisement from Professor T. Bird, stating, "Well done boys, but at least the Dark Queen doesn't cheat. Try again without the warps." The player is then booted back to the title screen to attempt to play properly. Well, you tried, at least. 9. South Park: The Fractured Butthole. Hey Tom Brady! Over its long tenure, South Park has been known for skewering absolutely everyone, including its own audience. This extends to recent video games The Stick of Truth and The Fractured Butthole, naturally. A moment in the second game, reserved for the truly lazy, or simply lucky, took a punt at New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady, who was suspended and fined by the NFL in a 2014 cheating scandal. Upon attempting to enter Eric Cartman's basement, the player character is met with a keypad whose numbers are accompanied by words such as shart, donkey, and balls. Inputting the correct code, "F you mom," without having first searched Cartman's notebook, Cartman himself will appear on the screen dressed as Patriots head coach, accusing you of trying to Tom Brady your way through the whole game. Considering Cartman's appalling disdain for his doting mother, it is hardly surprising that the code would be easy to guess, as many Twitter users pointed out in truly insufferable manner. 8. The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Forever branded a thief. A legendary trick used by many players to circumvent the exorbitant 980 rupee price for a bow in a store. Players would pick the item off the shelf, run rings around the shopkeeper, and exit before he got the chance to turn back around. Upon leaving the shop, the game would ask if you were proud of yourself. Of course not, you would reply, but at least you didn't have to go around mowing everyone's lawns for 3 hours instead. Upon inevitably returning to the shop, however, you would then be greeted with a furious shopkeeper demanding you pay the ultimate price, immediately electrocuting and killing you. Upon reloading, the item remained in Link's inventory, so it's a small price to pay. That is, until you talk to any NPC in the entire game, who now calls your character by the name Thief rather than Pooh, which you undoubtedly labelled him back in the early 90s. That's that, irredeemable. No matter your great deeds across the island, you will never be any more than a thief to these ingrates. 7. Heretic: Backfiring Doom Codes. In 1993's Doom and its 1994 sequel, Doom 2, IDDQD activated the invincibility-enabling God Mode, whilst IDKFA bestowed full health, ammo, weapons, armour and keys upon the player. Doom 3 didn't follow suit, but typing any of the original's codes into the console would bring up the cheeky message, "Your memory serves you well." Raven Software's Heretic, a dark fantasy shooter that ran on Doom's engine, was significantly more brazen though. Doom's classic codes, when entered into the console, would result in the original game's logical opposite. IDKFA had the game declare that the player was a cheater who didn't deserve weapons and left them unarmed. And IDDQD brought up the message, "Trying to cheat, eh? "Now you die," before reducing the player to a pile of low-res giblets. The iconic codes have shown up in various other games such as Earthworm Jim or many titles developed by Monolith Productions, but it's Heretic's impressive jab at the player that deserves a spot on this list. 6. Batman Arkham Asylum. Using the internet? I've discussed previously how the Joker chews Batman's ear off for the cardinal sin of exploiting a shortcut, but during one of the game's side quests, the Riddler will also give Batman a call accusing him of cheating. While many of Batman's rogues gallery occupy themselves by violently taking over the titular asylum, massacring the staff and attempting to kill the Caped Crusader, Edward Nygma executes a different plan. Rather than doing anything, effectual, he leaves cute little trophies hidden for the player to find, and allows Batman to kick back with some fun brain teasers across the island. If you do decide to take a break from jumping on goons and breaking all their arms and legs to stare at walls for a while, Nygma will begin sending abrasive voicemails explaining how much smarter he is than you. Solve enough, however, and he becomes increasingly indignant, yelling, "Are you cheating? Looking them up on the internet?" "Of course we are. Despite how ingenious you think your puns are, we'd rather get this over with so we can get back to kicking dudes in the face." 5. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Admit it, you cheated. RPGs frequently open with an in-depth character creation interface, allowing you to artfully sculpt your avatar's appearance and distribute stat points to best fit your preferred style of play. Or in the case of Dark Souls, at least attempt to make a character who doesn't look like a nightmarish balloon with an ugly face drawn on it. It was discovered that in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, it is possible to max out the player's stats using a clever little trick, spending all initial stats on the stat screen, backing out to the base screen and then progressing once again. Rinse and repeat. However, developer Troika Games knew all too well that this would be discovered and exploited. Upon beginning the game, NPC Smiling Jack will mock the player for clearly having cheated, requiring them to admit to being too weak to play the game the way it was meant to be played. The player can then choose to build their character properly or continue with the knowledge that they are a lazy, cheating scumbag. 4. Jade Empire. Exploding Gambler. Many games see violence enacted upon the player character for their fiendish attempts to cheat. I mean, we've spoke about Heretic and ZELDA. But what about when an innocent NPC receives an unjust punishment for your actions? Such was the case in BioWare RPG Jade Empire. Before committing to a game of dice with Daushan, the player could save the game and then immediately reload should they lose. Save scumming and repeating this process seems like the perfect path to wealth, until 20 victories in a row are achieved, at which point Daushan will convulse violently and explode, killing him and removing him from the game. Though the amount of silver gained from 20 victories was most likely enough to keep the player rich for the rest of the game, this was a fun feature to both stop further save scumming and make players feel just a little bit guilty for the gory mess they had made of the Imperial Arena. 3. Prey. Skipping the treasure hunt. 2017's masterful action RPG Prey contains a wealth of side quests, hidden items, and Easter eggs, and one particular fetch quest can be especially rewarding or punishing depending on how you approach it. Several, now dead, crew members on the stricken space station Talos 1 are avid tabletop gamers, and have been sent treasure maps for a safe code. Using the clues to find all 4 of these numbers gives the player access to the Adventurer's Toolkit chipset, which includes increased yield from the station's recyclers, increased flashlight duration, and faster movement speed whilst crouching. However, if the player simply looks up the solution online and inputs the code without having collected the clues first, their reward will be very different. They will receive the Game Master's Ire chipset instead, which takes all of the aforementioned bonuses and does the exact opposite, hampering their progress from then on. The original chipset is no longer accessible at all after doing such a deed, so trying to cheat is not advisable. 2. The Stanley Parable. The Serious Room. Originally a humble mod for Half-Life 2, the Stanley Parable has become a cult phenomenon for its thought-provoking tale on the nature of player choice and decision-making. Think of it as Bioshock, but with shooting bees out of your hands replaced with bumming around an office disobeying a vaguely patronising narrator. Exactly the same, really. The game has several different endings depending on the player's level of cooperation with the narrator. One climax, known as the serious ending, is reserved for players attempting to mess with the console's cheat commands. Upon opening the console and typing Source's iconic svcheats1 command, the player is immediately teleported to the Serious Room, where they are sentenced to stay for 100 billion trillion years as punishment for not taking the strict order of narrative events seriously. Trying the command again ups their sentence to infinity years. One final attempt results in the narrator giving up and searching for some more serious furniture for the Serious Room. to make your infinity-year sentence even more serious. 1. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, the Taxman Cometh. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, aside from its scenes of stirring adventure and awkward boning, contains some comical moments where legendary monster slayer Geralt finds himself thwarted by simple bureaucracy. One such moment only occurs if the player has accrued a whopping 35,000 crowns, an uncommon occurrence considering how expensive gear and maintenance is throughout the game. Several ways to acquire this amount of money is through exploits such as slaughtering respawning cows to sell their hides and milk, or buying cheap seashells and harvesting their pearls to sell at a high markup. Once Geralt's trousers are being pulled down by the weight of all this coin, the player will be accosted by Walthamore Mitty, a deputy tax enumerator in Oxenfurt. He will question the player about their means of obtaining such a fortune, referring specifically to the wholesale selling of rawhide or pearls. If the player admits to having partaken in such activities, then they are handed a summons to pay back their taxes at the Vivaldi Bank. As punishments go, that is pretty damn entertaining and also a bit terrifying. Nobody wants to pay their taxes in games. And that's our list. Which of you cheaters already knew these sneaky ways? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash over on Twitter at AshMillman, and this has been WhatCulture Gaming. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more unfaithful content. Thanks for watching.